Well, I don't think you've ever missed on a movie night movie I've caught. Well, I mean, yeah. Usually I play films that are maybe a little bit more obscure. But Platoon was a Best Picture winner the year it came out. And I think there was only one movie that made more money than Platoon that year. And I want to say off the top of my head, it was Crocodile Dundee, which is really fucking funny. I think that's right. Check logs if you want, otherwise it's late. I gotta go. Let me see what your logs say. I don't know if you want to talk about the world stuff beyond the film. One of the reasons you also lost. Document, take territory out there. Search and destroy. Yeah. Okay. Okay, I wanted to watch the credits on that one because I think the musical score of Adagio for Strings is beautiful, and obviously this movie is pretty insane. Okay, so let me turn everything back on. One second. Hold on. Let me get you guys situated again here. All right, your alerts are back on. It's chat, fixed alerts. Okay, great. Okay. You just watched the 1986 film from director and filmmaker Oliver Stone. And Oliver Stone is one of those directors where some people love him, some people hate him, but it's hard to deny his body of work. JFK, Born on the 4th of July, Platoon, Natural Born Killers. You know what's really funny is if you ever watch the movie True Romance, the filmmaker that they meet up with in that movie who's doing a shitload of cocaine is supposed to be Oliver Stone. I don't know if you guys have ever put that together, but if you ever watch True Romance, they sit down with the director who's buying a bunch of coke, and he's like, Coming Home in a Body Bag was my favorite movie ever. He's like, you liked Coming Home in a Body Bag? That's supposed to be Oliver Stone. And so this movie and the impact of this movie has been felt so much through popular media and film. What's amazing is I'm sure there were 6,000 of you plus who watched this movie tonight in and out. I'm sure like maybe half of you have seen this movie before, maybe, but everyone at a certain point was like, oh, this shot, oh, this song, oh, this part. This is one of those movies I talk about where you kind of get this weird sense of like deja vu when you watch this movie because so much of it has done in popular media. The scene with Defoe putting his arms up, Adagio for String, all the monologues, I like it here, or the dance, motherfucker, dance. In fact, this movie was so popular that it ended up kind of spinning off its own parody in like Hot Shots, which obviously was a parody of a lot of things. But if you've ever heard of the movies Hot Shots and Hot Shots Part 2, they were definitely influenced by Platoon and Charlie Sheen as a leading man. As I said, Oliver Stone being a Vietnam vet writing this film and directing this film was one of the first instances of that in film history, which seems crazy, but a veteran writing, producing, and directing, and then starring in, I don't know if you noticed, he is one of the generals in the bunker. I think this was actually the first time in film history a vet did that, where he wrote it, directed it, produced it, and then starred in a movie about the war that he was in, which is fascinating. And I think this movie there's something so tactile about it. It's amazing that this is such a cheap film. This was a $6 million film, which at the time obviously translates to more money now. But you look at the budget of like war films now, and it's not comparable at all. They did everything on a shoestring in this movie, and everything was practical, and it was just gritty, and the filming process was super intense. What else can I tell you? I gave a lot of factoids about this movie. This movie won Best Picture. It also really started the career of a lot of these guys. It's funny that you watch a lot of these war movies and you're like, this cast is crazy. When at the time, like, these guys were like 20-year-old actors. You know what I mean? Like, casting them like wasn't this massive victory. They were just young, aspiring talent that kind of panned out down the line. And, you know, Forrest Whitaker and Dr. Cox and Willem Dafoe, Johnny Depp. This movie was absolutely fucking packed with talent. One thing I love about this movie that I think is unique to this movie as opposed to other war films. Other war films seem to focus on the history, and they really like to focus on a pivotal and an important moment within the war, right? D-Day, Normandy, the Tet Offensive, or something that you can historically, Dunkirk, plant your finger in and go, this is happening now. Platoon is really interesting because it's more of like a slice of life war film where it kind of just starts when it starts and it kind of just ends when it ends. And Red, even kind of at the end of the film, is like, you can see he's so crushed because it's like back to the fucking war. Slice of life, yeah, life for those men, right? Slice of life in the sense that like they're not trying to portray anything other than like what it was to exist in that time and space. And the end of Platoon is so haunting because the war is not over. It's not over for any of those men but the two that leave on the helicopter. And you see kind of the three different groups there. You see the one guy who's like mortal terror that he's staying, the one guy who's like still locked in, and the two guys who are just completely shell-shocked. And it's a fascinating way to end a war film. And I almost really like it better because someone brought up a quote that I love, and it's a really interesting philosophical thing to ponder when you watch war movies. And that is, can a war movie ever truly be anti-war, right? If you are making profit on and you are depicting the action of, is there any way that you can truly make a war movie anti-war? And I understand this concept when it comes to a lot of films. I'll be honest. I watch Saving Private Ryan and I want to run through a fucking concrete wall. You know what I mean? I know it's bad, but at times I'm just like, there's something about the evolutionary wiring in me that cannot resist that temptation. However, I will say, movies like Platoon, movies like Come and See get very close. They get very close to what they are trying to accomplish. because I do think that there is a segment of the population that will always take the wrong message from film, right? There are people that watched Fight Club and they're like, damn, how do I get Brad Pitt's abs? There are people that watched American Psycho and they're like, man, Patrick Bateman's got the life. You cannot help how the worst, most irresponsible percentage of your viewing body will consume the art you are trying to make. And ultimately, I don't think that's a good rationale to not make the art in the first place. Platoon is a movie that I think, what do I always say about film? I think the greatest feat of film is inspiring radical empathy in you, in that you get to live a life that was not your own. You get to be a fly in the wall and consume the trauma of, the joy of, the highs and lows and everything in between of a walk of life that is outside yours. And I think Platoon is great at, like, you see how monstrous the American war machine is. You see how horrifically those GIs treated the native population and how brutal they were. But at the same time, it does a good job to drum up empathy even to those young men, because it shows that there are levels even in a foxhole, right? There were people that went over there with preconceived notions of being heroes. There were men that were drafted. There were guys that fucking liked it because they were psychopaths. There were men who found their humanity in Vietnam, who went in as warmongers and came out peaceniks. It's amazing what high stress blenders war are and how many different ways that can push people. It's kind of like being an antagonist. An antagonist in a story is not the bad guy. An antagonist in the story is the thing that affects change. And ultimately, I think this movie asks less of wrong and right and more of just kind of like this radical empathetic question of like, how the fuck did we get here? Who is pulling the fucking trigger? One thing I love about this movie, that I don't know if you ever understood, is that Barnes is not in command. Barnes is never in command of this platoon. The other fucking Ivy League admiral, Lieutenant Wolf, played by Mark Moses, is. But he's such a fucking effete loser, dingus, that he basically hands off control to the most brutal man that he has under his command, which is Barnes. And I think that says a lot about Vietnam as a whole, right? If you get up the leadership, it always seems like the leadership is kind of two steps behind this war in this movie. And it comes down to that really fucking famous scene where he's like, drop the ordnance on my IO. What a beautiful war this is. Just kind of this like, yeah, nuke me, man. It's all we can do. Everything is completely fucked up. Drop the fucking ordnance right on my goddamn head. It's really interesting because when you talk about the war machine and you talk about Vietnam, one thing that's amazing is I actually saw a commentary about like who won Vietnam from a political angle, from a military angle, when the truth is no one wins a war, ever. There's no winning a war. Everybody loses when it comes to war. To perceive war from the perspective of the binary of winning and losing basically loses the forest for the trees immediately, right? There's that idea that like a positive will come from triumphing or a negative will come from losing. Ultimately, any situation that elevates to war is one that we have lost control of in terms of our humanity. Obviously, World War II kind of has a special fucking angle there because there was a tyrant hopped up on crystal meth that was about the worst person we've ever seen. But even so, I think that radical humanity and empathy leading up to World War II probably could have prevented the war and saved a lot of lives even in that situation. So I don't know. I'm heavily anti-war. I always will be. I think this is an amazing film for the anti-war heads. It's really well done. It's pretty fucking old at this point. It's 40 years old, which feels crazy to say out loud. And it still holds up. And I hope you watch movies like this, and I hope they inspire radical empathy. And I hope the next time that, you know, you start thinking of something as a binary, or, you know, you stop listening to your gut, or you stop being inquisitive about why someone's telling you something is evil or good. You take the time to question it, and question it with your own values. Anyway, I really enjoy this movie, and I hope you enjoyed it too. I've said my little spiel about why this film is important. Obviously, some things I didn't cover more in depth. The soundtrack, Adagio for strings, becomes like an iconic score. Charlie Sheen has a tremendous acting career that is only stopped by contracting AIDS and losing his mind. Oliver Stone goes on to be a fantastic director and make a lot of really excellent projects. There are a lot that I recommend you see. JFK is really interesting. I really like Natural Born Killers. Not everybody does. And then another one I really like, if you enjoy football, I think Any Given Sunday is actually low-key the best football movie ever made. I know the Remember the Titans fans will fucking kill me for that, but I think the Any Given Sunday is such an honest look at the NFL. If you want kind of the gritty version of professional football, you can watch that. So anyway, this is the part of the night now where I open it up to questions, and I will do my best to enrich your viewing of this film as best I can. I hope you enjoyed Platoon. Question: what were the reviews at the time? This movie crushed. This movie won Best Picture. It made over $100 million on a $6 million budget. When this movie came out, a lot of vets felt really seen for the first time, because ultimately Apocalypse Now is a really good movie. I think it gets a little bit into the film auteur world, and it's more concerned with telling a story than it is its portrayal of Vietnam, whereas this film is like an unabashed veterans put you in the fucking bunker take. And so a lot of vets like really loved Platoon. And yeah, it crushed the box office. So that's how it was received. Here's Johnny. Hey, do you like to watch movies and stuff? I really do. Thank you. Thank you for the raid. When you said Oliver Stone, I kept thinking Roger Stone. That would be a crazy different movie. He would have justified the killing of all those Vietnamese people by the end of that film if it was Roger Stone. Thank you for the raid. How do you feel about the take that all good war movies are anti-war and only the bad films are hoorah American Sniper? I don't agree, because like I'll give you one example of like a very pro-war movie that I actually really enjoy. If you've ever seen Enemy at the Gates, Enemy at the Gates is like, it's just a really tight war movie, and it makes sniping look like the coolest thing that's ever happened. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. I think you can make a war movie that is watchable. I think the problem is the threat of indoctrinating young people into not understanding the trap of war. But ultimately, I think we have so many other things that contribute to that. I hate to be like the video games are dangerous guy, but Call of Duty is basically now just one big ad to join the military. They kind of launched that out, and the military knows that, right? Like the military has a professional gaming team that they march out, and they understand like the power of desensitizing young people to warlike violence. So I don't know. It's an interesting point, and I am at least willing to entertain it philosophically. Seeing as war is more than a thing we do on a screen, will war movies like this become a distinct product of their era? What is a good, thoughtful war movie like? I don't understand your question at all. Is more and more a thing? Seeing as war is more and more a thing we do on the screen. War is not more and more of a thing we do on the screen. War is just further from you because you have a lot more things to distract you. Like I'm sorry, the Strait and what's going on in Iran. If that was happening in the 1960s and 50s, you would be watching it on the news every single fucking night. We've just lost interest. We've become so fucking desensitized to global war that we don't entertain ourselves with it anymore. We don't fucking watch or pay attention or think it's consequential because we have our fucking internet and we have our video games and we have our Marvel movies. And so that feels far away from us. But if those things were happening when we didn't have all those distractions, and we would be paying attention to it with absolutely glued focus. So, I mean, I hate to like point a finger, but like, no, war is not something we just do on screen anymore. It's just something that feels that way because now you can't even fathom something so horrible. But ask those kids in Palestine what war feels like, and ask them if it feels like it's something that happens on the screen. We're still funding that one. Bro, I was talking about drones. Well, then say, what the fuck are you talking about? Shut up. How many people at the time misinterpreted the message of this movie? I don't know that. It was before I was born. It's really hard to say. I'm sure a percentage. War sometimes watch. Wait,
we sometimes watch animated movies here. And while we're on the subject of war films, what are your thoughts on When the Wind Blows? It being a war film that is on the topic of the Cold War. I don't know if you've seen it. Would love to see it here sometime in the future.
I recently saw it
and it was insanely intense. Thank you for these film classes.
Never even heard of this movie. I'll have to check it out. When the Wind Blows. Never even heard of this. Huh. An animated movie from 1986, also interesting. Sorry, chatter, if I misunderstood your question about drones. I read it as best I could. I was just a kid when I watched the first Vietnam War film, which was Good Morning Vietnam. It really brought out the cruelty and humanity of war. It was then that I became an anti-war person. My father was a Vietnam War veteran, so these films hit home in a very different way, for sure. What was in the movie you originally wanted us to use The Thing to talk about? Oh, The Thing is the greatest horror movie ever made. I have hours I can talk about The Thing. Have you seen Grave of the Fireflies? I have. If we could just keep it to this movie. I know I say this every week. Death by a Thousand Cuts. I'm not going to snap. I'm not going to be mean. I know we love to play the have you seen this movie game. And the reality is I've seen thousands of movies. I haven't seen them all. But if you can target the question to kind of be more like this about the experience we just had.
I don't take no shit from anyone.
My only complaint is kinda how long before it actually happens you know Elias is about to die.
Oh.
It felt like a foregone conclusion. He had to go, so we didn't have a more sympathetic character at the end. Also, starting Dungeon Crawler Carl book 2 good shit.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, but here's what I will say about the creeping death of Elias. I think there is something in film that is a very powerful storytelling device called dread. And you know Elias is fucked. I know Elias is fucked. We all know Elias is fucked. And that's why that 5-minute piece of the film feels like it's 20. You know what I mean? That is a very deliberate storytelling strategy. And it was meant to stretch and stretch and stretch, and the tension eats you up. Wasn't playing that game, but Threads is 100% peak anti-war movie. Thank you. Do you have any thoughts on the class dynamics within Platoon? Obviously, it's something that Oliver Stone makes mention of because it was certainly something that was happening in Vietnam, the disparate treatment of the black and brown soldiers that were over there. Obviously Oliver Stone doesn't shy away from it. He drops some N-bombs and he, has some really horrible treatment. He didn't dive into it as much as it was an issue, though, is what I will say. It was much more of a profound issue within Vietnam than I think even Oliver Stone. Oliver Stone had his area of focus, and I think he let the audience know that he was aware of it without it taking up a bunch of screen time because he didn't want to distract from what he was conveying. Was there any reason for the Weimar flag on the tank at the end? Seems so random. Okay, here's a great factoid. And I don't know if this is a part of this, but Platoon made a really interesting costuming decision. All of the actors in Platoon picked their own uniform. So basically every uniform that you see within Platoon was picked by the actor. So they basically had like a mass of Vietnam costumes, and they would like dress themselves and they would decorate their own helmets, so much so that Johnny Depp at the time even wrote the name of his girlfriend in real life on his helmet. And so if you pay attention, his real life girlfriend is on his helmet. So I think a lot of the costuming and the decision were guys like who maybe had a Vietnam dad or had a story from Vietnam, or in their character research, they wanted to pay forward something that they brought to the character. So that might have been a specific decision of one of those actors. I don't know. What would your nickname call sign be in Platoon? Hole. Sergeant Hole. According to Dai, he saw some American soldiers use Nazi symbols to intimidate the Vietnamese. Interesting. Maybe like, hey, we won this war, we're going to do this to you too. I'm not sure. How do you think the main character being a volunteer changes your interpretation of the film? Oh, Oliver Stone is not ambiguous about that at all. He chose a volunteer because if you listen to the narratives throughout, Charlie Sheen starts very positive about the entire experience, right? He's like, wow, we're so, and they were sharp, as sharp as knives. He wants the character arc of the soldier to be gung-ho about the war effort, so much so that he leaves school to join it. And by the end, he wants him to be disillusioned and hate it and to fucking be very against. So it was very much a deliberate choice to have a character arc of being positive to negative about the war. Also, I believe Oliver Stone was a volunteer as well. And Charlie Sheen is like a total self-insert for Oliver Stone. In fact, there's one really specific scene in the movie, and it's a really interesting detail. During the first ambush, when the Viet Cong is walking through the jungle, you see Charlie Sheen with his eyes wide open, and he's like, and everybody's like, you fell asleep. Apparently, that's something that happened to Oliver Stone, where he was blamed for an ambush that he was sleeping on patrol, and he claims he wasn't, but it fundamentally changed his relationship with his platoon during his first deployment. And so that moment was very personal to him because he said it put him on the very bottom of the pecking order. And so he wanted to demonstrate that for Charlie Sheen's character. But he gives Chris's character the moment during the final battle where he rushes in shouting, it's fucking beautiful. Yeah, man, he lost his fucking mind. I think the point is that in order to survive, he went fucking crazy. That exact kind of like shot is borrowed by a movie you might have seen called 28 Days Later. I think Chris fully adapting war and going from like the objector to being like it's beautiful, accepting the rage is very much mirrored in 28 Days Later. I don't think that is supposed to be indicative of like Chris being like, Bunny was right, war is great. I think that like the situation is so high pressure and insane that Chris has to lose his mind to survive. Which is why when they find him, he's like, do you have any thoughts on how soldiers are depicted versus how victims of war are depicted in this film? Is it appropriate? Do you have any thoughts on how soldiers are depicted versus how victims of war are depicted in this film? Is it appropriate? Oh, I don't understand your question. Genuine question. How do civilian victims of war go about radical empathy against aggressor troops? In this case, the Americans. Genuinely curious. Man, that's a great question. I don't know. Do you bear ill will to any German you meet? I don't know. It's obviously like a very difficult and complex question. I think forgiving violence or forgiving anyone is a very high-minded thing to do, and it's not easy and it's not expected. I don't think forgiveness is an absolute. I don't think you expect anyone and everyone to forgive. I think it kind of takes like a leap of faith, and it takes radical empathy. So ultimately, you know, I don't expect every victim or child of the victims of this war to turn around and say that. But ultimately, I do think if you get enough perspective on it, you realize that the same people that ordered your village to be raided are the ones that like basically conscribed those men into war slavery and then sent them in to fight a war that they knew nothing about and then left them, and then when they returned gave them no resources. Like, those guys didn't pick the war. War makers did. I think the idea is that there's like a class solidarity there beyond borders that when you realize exists, you can get a lot more done. Will, don't you dare insert nuance into this discussion. Bro's buffering? No, I was literally reading a bunch of questions and comments that were dumb, and I was just trying to maintain a serious attitude. But like, one guy in chat will be like, yeah, but tell us about class solidarity of butthole. And I'm like, okay, dude. I'm trying to like comb through. I'm not buffering. I'm trying to find anything of substance that's not going to make me fucking laugh. Jesus Christ. Will, would you ever get a tattoo? I would. I always vowed that I would wait for my dad to pass away before I got a tattoo. I actually love tattoos. Caroline knows this. You can ask her. I follow a lot of tattoo accounts. I've talked to a lot of tattoo artists that I'm a big fan of. But my dad hates tattoos, and I kind of promised I would wait for him to pass away. And I had no idea he was going to live to 100. So here I am, 36, no tattoos. Your dad is 197. What's the first one? I'll show you. I've talked to the guy many times. This is my favorite tattoo artist in the world, and when and if my dad passes away before me, no guarantee there. His name is Uzi. He's a Korean tattoo artist, and he does insane line work. Do you still do improv ever? I literally taught an improv class today. How crazy is that? I have been working since, I think my improv class started at noon. I did a 3-hour improv class, came home, did Cobblemon, then did film night. I've basically just accepted, like, I have too much to do. And if I'm going to stream and be a streamer, I'm just going to have to bite the bullet a lot and like go hard some days. And today I went hard. Oh my God, how did it go? Dude, it was awesome, man. And it was awesome because it wasn't for camera. It was just for like 8 young creators that I met through my buddy Henry that wanted to learn more about improv and being on camera. And so I did a 3-hour workshop for them, and it was like really intimate, and I didn't have to like play it towards camera, because when you're doing improv for camera, you kind of have to do everything at like a blistering pace, and you have to keep it funny, and you can't like coach as much. It was just a lot more freeform and fun. But just realized it's past midnight. I turned 35. Happy birthday! Happy birthday, dude. 35's a good year. Anyway, does anybody have any more questions before we move on? I know everybody wants me to do Elisa. I'll do Elisa before I end. Would you agree that projects like Private Ryan and Band of Brothers, sorry, my tongue is tired, have a completely different objective, where they tell the stories of legit heroes.
That's very cool.
Vietnam movies will always be inherently different
cheddar.
because of the
Nestle.
setting.
Oh yeah, wow, that's very cool.
The setting is a very interesting way of wording that there was no real purpose for Vietnam. Vietnam was America flexing its muscles, and there were no cities to take, and it was just kind of men running around in a jungle killing each other. And so there was no way to like even win that war. I think World War II is such like a special case because of the Holocaust, right? The Holocaust adds such an interesting philosophical level to World War II, where all of a sudden like war feels just. I would pose that ultimately there is a question of humanity that like, can anything make war just, right? Like this idea of a just kill, does it actually exist? And if there is such a thing as a just kill, after you take life to preserve life, what is your responsibility as the one that goes on after you have fell evil? What level of good must you ascribe to? And is the United States living up to that level of good in the time after that? Because as you zoom out from World War II, that line becomes murkier. These are the reason I ask so many questions there is not because I want answers, but more to really hammer home that only a Sith thinks in absolutes. Only a Sith thinks in absolutes. You know what I mean? I'm for the Republic, Anakin. I'm for democracy. Anyway. Which version of Apocalypse Now should I watch? Honestly, purists will tell you watch the really long one. I think the theatrical is fine if you want to save an hour. There's like a scene where he like shacks up with a French chick that kind of makes no sense.
Wow,
I don't know.
Cool.
Watch
Really
the
no
long one if you want to be a
questions or notes
purist.
on this one, man. Ever since I heard about this movie, I somehow knew I was gonna like it. This is an instant favorite cinema.
Thank you.
Thank you for another great film and month.
All right. Phew. Thanks so much, guys. I appreciate you. That's good. That's gonna do it for film night. I hope you enjoyed. Okay, so first and foremost, I saw a lot of the same question. What song am I playing? Guys, this is Super Mario Paint Mysterious Ambient Remix. And this is the song that I'm listening to when I write. And when I write, which has been coming back recently, yes, I have been writing. People ask a lot of questions about me writing. I have started writing again. I finished a screenplay for a movie with a horror movie with AI as the villain that I'm really proud of. And I might bang out some other stuff. So hopefully we can talk more about that as I move down the process of being a writer again. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me. And I know we have some motherfucking birthdays in the house.
Lisa. What, Bart? It's 6 a.m. That's right. Hope you like your present. And a 1, and a 2, and a 1, 2, 3, 4.
Lisa, it's your birthday. God God bless you this day. You gave me the gift of a little sister, and I'm proud of you today. Lisa, it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Lisa. Lisa, it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Lisa. I wish you love and goodwill. I wish you praise and joy.
I wish you better than your heart desires.
And your first kiss from a boy. Lisa, it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Lisa. Lisa, it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Lisa.
All right, guys. To anybody I yelled at tonight, I'm sorry. It was a long day. I'm sorry if I never like to yell at chatters. I know a lot of chatters like to be yelled at, but like I fucking hate it.
Oh yeah, wow, that's very
I
cool.
hate it. I don't like to yell at anybody. I know I was short with some people, and it's just because I was working so darn much today, and I hate to do that. You guys are all valuable, and I really appreciate you guys making the best community on this damn platform. If you enjoyed that movie, make sure you check out more Oliver Stone. He really is worth checking out as a filmmaker. What else can I say? Tomorrow I have the podcast, so I don't know if I will be able to go live by my start time. I will try my best. But on Friday, we have a really fun stream planned with a lot of our friends. We're going to try and get as many people together for the long walk as possible. No, wait, is it the long walk or is it the big walk? Oh, God. The long walk is a different game. Oh, Jesus Christ. Big walk. Walk us on. You better keep moving them legs, you big commie pussy. Yeah, we're getting all of our friends together to play the fucking long walk. Only one leaves alive. Jesus Christ. I'm tired, man. I'm tired. Fuck. Okay. All right. What a night. Thank you for joining me. This was a lot of fun. I hope you had a good time. All right, dude. I'm actually going to send you over to, she doesn't need the raid. She's bigger than I'll ever be. But I'm going to send you over to Senna because she's doing her fucking subathon. And I always like to support the friends when they're doing something big. So I know she doesn't need the raid, but go represent us. Be gentle people. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. I hope you enjoyed. I hope I entertained. You guys give so much to me. And I know my life professionally has changed so much and I cannot make as much time for stream, but know that I'm doing my best every single day to get here and to keep this a safe and comfy place for all of you. And I hope I can keep doing that for as long as I possibly can. So with that being said, I appreciate you. I appreciate you being empathetic people. We always want to keep this. You know what I'm proud of? I think a lot of safe spaces are bullshit, but this is a real one. And it's safe because you're empathetic, not only to causes and things that it is easy to be empathetic to, but all walks of life. And I think that's what makes this special. Also, you're all incredibly horny, which I don't know how that happened. I wish you were all less horny. If we can work on that, then I think this could truly be a perfect community. You fucking degenerates. Anyway, stay dangerous. Honky, honky. Have a wonderful rest of your night. I might see you tomorrow. I might see you Thursday. Give Cinna my love and good night.